I've got 8 random questions for you here. I roll the die 3 times, and whatever I roll for you, that's where we start.
All right.
Can you share with us one audition high and one audition low and what you learned from that low?
I booked a job from a great audition. Like, I went in and was like the underdog and got the part, and literally like that night they were like, "You've got to fly to Chicago." And I was like, I don't know, it was like one of my first jobs, and I was like, I'm so excited. I'm gonna have money in the It's just like so exciting. I literally go home, pack my suitcase, and get on a plane and fly to Chicago because I'm gonna be on some show that shoots in Chicago. And it was Kyle Chandler had a show, like new early edition. And somewhere in mid-flight, there were no cell phones or whatever. Mid-flight, Les Moonves was like, "Nah, I don't know who that kid is. I'm gonna cast." I think they cast Christy Swanson. I know who she is. And so I landed thinking I had a job, and I think I had a beeper, and I got all these beeps, and I went to a payphone in Chicago O'Hare Airport, called my manager, and he's like, "Kid, you don't have the job. Les Moonves changed his mind. He doesn't think you're famous enough or whatever." And he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Get me out of here." In 24 hours was like this big high and this big low. And I think like maybe a month later, the showrunner, who was a really lovely, decent person, I don't remember his name, they called me and they said, "Would you come do an episode?" And I was like, fuck that show at first. And then I thought, no, there's something and I went and did an episode. There was something in about checking your ego. It just was like a great reminder that sometimes you think you know what the path is.
This one we call autofill. So I'll plug someone's name into Google and see what it autofills. And for you, the one thing that kept coming up was, does Leslie Bibb have a twin? People think you look like everyone.
You know what? I get that when people go, "I feel like I know you." And I'm like, I also have a face that looks like today some guy goes, "Can I have your photo?" And I was like, do you think I'm Maggie Grace? Like, I just was like, people, like, I was like, it's okay. Like, I don't even take it that I don't take personally. I'm like, he's like, "No, you're Leslie." Like, I felt like such a dummy when I said it, but like, yeah, I feel like I could look like your cousin, or I look like, somebody else.
If you could compete on the game show of your choice, what show would you pick, and could you actually win it?
I don't want to win anything. I want to win other people money. Like, that's exciting for me.
You should go on Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, and they always play for a charity.
I have done it. Remember Jane Lynch had a TV show, and I went on it. I think I forget that it's actually being like televised for people to see, because I don't realize how competitive I am. But I was very good. Our team won, and then the girl picked me to do like the final thing, and I won like $10,000 for a charity.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for a brand new episode of Ladies Night. I'm very excited to welcome Leslie Bibb to the show, who is here in support of God's Favorite Idiot, brand new Netflix series. But you have a whole bunch of titles that I'm very excited about right now.
I love it.
You're lucky that you have a lot of titles that I like to talk about, because otherwise this would be a full conversation about Trick or Treat and nothing else. Do you remember a specific project or experience on set when, you could just feel something click, where all of a sudden acting became a creative itch that you knew you were good at, but also you knew you had to keep scratching?
Our first year, at the end of your first year of school, they give you start to do scene study, and Maggie gave me this very obscure play that's like hard to find. It's like a palm tree and a rose garden. It's like some weird title, and I couldn't get it. I wasn't catching it. My scene partner and I weren't catching it. And it was the last day of class of the last day of our first year. And I don't know what happened. Scene ended, and I didn't know where I was. I was like on the ground in like a heap of tears. My scene partner was like seething, like something just happened to both of us. The scene, like I understood what it meant to be in a scene with somebody, to listen and respond, to know where I, to have a point of view. But I remember feeling like I didn't know where the last 5 minutes had gone of whatever we were doing. I just sort of, the words were coming out of my mouth. I was having this connected reaction to the words and to the circumstance. And I remember going home from class and thinking, I, that's the only way I have to work. Like that's how it has to be every time. I think that probably was that moment where I thought, well, there's nothing else I'm going to do. Like it was like a drug. It was like so like, and I was like, how do I do that every time? So I guess that would be really the moment.
Let's jump ahead to popular. With that one, I'm curious about what it was like after that show wrapped up its run because you're still semi new to the industry. It was hugely popular when it started out. And,
Yeah.
everyone's often told you want to use momentum like that to serve you well moving forward. So, what were some of your priorities for yourself after that show wrapped up? And what were the tactics you used to get the projects you wanted moving forward?
That show, it's so funny. You do those shows, and I think you always take it for granted. I don't know how to tell a young actor when they're doing that show, because you just think like the world's going to be your oyster and like everything's going to unfold for you. And then it doesn't sometimes. Like you can be on that show and it's like, I remember feeling it was, we shot like 22 or 24 episodes, and it was like, it was exhausting and long. And I'm sure I took it for granted. It feels like a blur, almost popular. It feels like all of it, and not even really understanding even the social ripple it was making. You think you're doing a show, and still to this day, I will have people come up to me on the street or on Instagram and be like, that show, you did this, that show did this. There's no guidebook for like, you're going to do something and then overnight everything's going to change. And I can't imagine for young kids doing shows now, because there wasn't Instagram and all of that. Like you just had like magazine shoots. Like now there's all of this other stuff. I mean, if I found it overwhelming then, I can't imagine how it must feel now to young people starting out, like your first job. I think it was like, it felt like great grad school, and we were doing something that was really meaningful to people watching. um, I don't know. I'm really grateful for the experience. I think afterwards you were like, oh, it's all just going to happen like that. And then I think like after we finished the show, they were like, it's not getting picked up. And I had a movie I was going to go do in New York City, which I was so excited. And then September 11th happened, and the world sort of shut down for like the movie I was going to do in New York didn't happen, and like the world just sort of halted. And I don't know if, like, I just sort of felt my energetic just felt like I stalled a little bit. Um, but you just keep chugging along, and then you just go back and you think things are just going to come right back in, and then you're like, oh no, now you got to go in and audition. Now you got to just like, you might have gotten like, when you're on the show, you maybe skip like 2 steps and you come in and meet the director. Now you've got to maybe go back down and still meet the casting director now. Do you know what I mean? So you still have the same
Yes.
grind. You just like, where you're entering your freeway ramp is a little different. You're no longer in the HOV lane. You're like stuck in traffic, you know, trying to Frogger your way up the 405.
So, with God's Favorite Idiot, obviously you have a whole bunch of super talented people involved, and I imagine that's a big draw to the project. But is there anything in particular when that script came your way that made you say, this is the right thing for me to do right now? Whether it was giving you the opportunity to try something new, do something you were familiar with that you wanted to dig into more, you name it.
Michael McDonald, who was our director and one of the showrunners, I knew he was going to Australia, and it was 2020, and it was a pandemic, and work was very scarce, and I was like, "Oh, it's so cool! You get to go to Australia, and there's no COVID there." And he said, "Listen, would you want to play Satan?" And I was like, "Of course." And he was like, "Well, just read the scripts and see if you like it." And I was like, I don't really. It's called God's Favorite Idiot. I feel like Satan's going to be a good part, and it's Melissa and Ben. Like, I think I'm pretty good. He was like, "Just read it, because I think I think you'd be great in this part, and I think Melissa and Ben really like you too for it." And I read it, and it was like one of those moments where you're like, I felt like I was like on candid camera, like somebody was going to be like, "Psych." And I got lucky because I think because it was a pandemic, I think other people that didn't want to travel. So like I did. And like, um, I ran, couldn't get to Australia fast enough to play it. There's something I like playing. I mean, if you're playing a villain, and I've played a few, I think it's fun to find the humanity, because I don't think villains think they're villains. Like, I don't think Satan thinks they're a bad person. Narcissists don't think they're narcissists. So, psychopaths probably don't think they're psycho. I don't know. I think there's a story you tell yourself that is not like, and it's really hard. Just to play a villain is boring. And I remember when I read it, I just remember seeing, like, just imagining like Tracy Flick from Election, and just thinking like, God, could I make, there's something quirky about her. And there was like I felt she was really lonely, and she really needed friends. And like, she was just that person who made the wrong choice at the wrong time. Like, there was like, I think like I just felt like she was like the sibling that the father didn't love as much as the other sibling, or she was like the adopted child. You know what I mean? There was something about it that I wanted to try to see if I could make her somehow likable in a way. And I just thought it was so fun. I mean, she was so rotten, and she's like a 3-year-old, like a petulant child who just wants her way so desperately. And I think anytime you can get to work with people like Ben and Melissa, when you're around greatness, you rise to that. So it's like when you're around Robert Downey Jr., you rise. Like, you're around Will Ferrell, you rise. Like, you just, like, even if it's not a famous actor, if they're a good actor, you rise. I'm really proud of the work I did in that. I think it's funny and weird and strange. And yeah, it's not always that I say I'm proud of stuff, but I'm proud of that. I like the work that I did.
You look like you're having so much fun. And that sense of fun, like, radiates off the screen and lets the viewer have quite a bit of fun with your interpretation of that
Yeah.
character.
Thank you so much. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. Ben wrote a great part. And like, I remember reading all 8 scripts, and sometimes I would text Ben and I'm like, I'm laughing out loud, just reading the script, reading the stuff that like they're saying at the office, and also realizing like what he's sort of saying. Like, there's like, feels like a bigger message that's happening in a very subtle way about just being kind to everybody, like sort of something that I feel like we need right now, which is just about kindness, and just everyone, just a little less judgment, a little bit more understanding, a little bit, I thought, I remember just being like, Ben Falcone's a really smart writer. He's a really, really, really smart writer.
I should let you go, but I will say a big thank you for hanging out with us on Ladies Night. Congratulations on God's Favorite Idiot. And like, I could have spent hours and hours and hours talking with you. So for your next release, we got to do another edition of Ladies Night.
Thank you so much, and thanks for getting me through the chrome of it all.